The shooting range. In this episode, Pages of History, the development of night vision systems, tactics and strategy. We're taking a look at the new map, the cargo port, and Metal Beasts, the worldwide renowned Soviet fighter. The update 1.91 brings one of the most desired Soviet machines in the game, the light fighter MiG-21, created in Mikoyan's Construction Bureau. This is the most mass-produced supersonic aircraft in the world. It's quite versatile, fast, and pleasant to control. So let's take a closer look. The first thing to notice is this long, lance-like thing under the air intake. It's so-called pitot, the instrument that measures air pressure to determine the aircraft's speed in subsonic and supersonic environments. There are also incident vanes on it that measure the angle of attack and the side-slip angle. The cigar-like fuselage with a 3-spar triangle wing indicate that this MiG is a pure-blood, modern, supersonic aircraft. The free space inside the fuselage and wings is taken up by protected fuel tanks connected to a powerful turbojet engine. The offensive armament consists of one 30mm cannon plus various payload options: unguided S5k Missiles, heavy S-24 missiles, R-3S air-to-air missiles, plus 250 and 500 kilogram bombs. Obviously, the tactics on this aircraft heavily depend on what payload options you choose. Let's start with the S5k missiles. K in the name of the rocket refers to the cumulative warhead that was created to destroy ground tech. That won't be easy to do, though, as most of your ground opponents will be covered with reactive armor, and placing multiple tiny missiles in one spot so that one would destroy the protection and the other would pierce the armor, well, that would be extremely lucky considering the speeds that those MiGs can fly at. Moving on to the S-24 rockets. You've only got 2 of these, but each weighs 235 kilograms, like a good bomb, so it can easily destroy an enemy MBT with one hit. Aim at the roof of the engine compartment, though your aim isn't very important here. Even if the missile hits the target under a caterpillar, the HE effect should be enough to send anyone back to the hangar. This one should be very useful in mixed RB. Last but not least of the missiles are used against enemy aviation and are somewhat similar to the early Sidewinders in terms of their performance data, and they'll follow the target after launch. But the aiming system here is still not very modern, so if your opponent knows how to maneuver his plane, he'll dodge the missile. If you want to increase your chances, wait for the target to fly at the straightest possible trajectory before launching this rocket. And finally, the bombs. 2 250 kilogram and 2 500 kilogram ones. Unlike the missiles, you can only drop both of these at the same time. So no matter what you choose, you only get one shot. On the other hand, it's much safer and easier than with the missiles, isn't it? In most cases, we recommend taking the smaller ones. They've got more than enough power to do the job, but the plane will get more maneuverability, which gives it more chances to live until the time you dispose of those presents. And now to the tactics. If you want to play mixed RB, take either bombs or the heavy S-24 missiles. Both options will suffice if you want to send 1 or 2 targets back to the hangar and then gain some speed to hunt for enemy aviation. Pure air battles will require the R-3S missiles. If you're good enough, they'll get you 2 additional frags. Still, If you consider its flight performance, the MiG-21 is a pure-blood supersonic fighter. It lives until it loses speed, makes a foolishly dangerous maneuver under the enemy AA gun's noses, or picks a fight with multiple enemies at the same time. They first tried to use optics to see something in the darkness long before night vision scopes were invented. As early as when the first spyglasses were used, they realized that the larger the scope's diameter, the brighter the night looked through it. That's how they discovered the light-gathering effect. Of course, the primitive optical devices weren't in the slightest bit as capable as the modern night vision systems. Simple calculations showed that turning night into day would require a lens several meters wide, which would be quite problematic to walk around with. It all changed during the early 30s with the invention of image intensifiers, devices that were capable of catching low-light processes and transform them into a visible image. In short, they work like this. Say there's a photon of diffused light, not visible to the human eye. It hits a photocathode, which converts it to an electron. Then it speeds up in a powerful magnetic field, grabs other electrons with it, and all this crowd bangs into a layer of luminophores, atoms that tend to light up after collisions with electrons such as this one. As a result, the picture that gets into the eye lens is massively brighter than it seems to the naked eye. So now we can see a lot more. Still, the first image intensifiers were huge, gave out blurred picture, and had low sensitivity. They had to kinda help them by additionally illuminating the observed object in infrared spectrum. Why infrared? Well, in order not to give out the observer's location, of course. Who knows what the enemy would think of? They might, start shooting, or even worse, aim a common searchlight to his position, which would completely burn out the sensitive night vision device. But even these primitive technologies were useful. For example, even before the war, the Soviet scientists created the Dudka system, which can be translated as pipe or flute, that made it possible to drive a tank even during the night without using its regular lights. In Germany, they also created something similar, but after the war had already started. First, the Luftwaffe night fighters used simple infrared seekers, and then they implemented artillery, ground and naval sights, even though initially they had quite a short range and narrow field of view. After that, the technology started developing rapidly. Compact sizes, wide angles, flash protection, picture quality. Today, a lot of modern tanks, planes, and helicopters have night vision systems. At the same time, they were developing another technology, thermal sights, enabling seeing things in the infrared spectrum. But wait, those of you who haven't dozed off yet because of all the scientific terms will surely ask us, don't the night vision devices also use infrared spectrum? Where's the difference? Okay, let's figure this out once and for all. Night vision devices are set to see the visible part of the spectrum, and only a tiny bit of the infrared one, the bit where the additional infrared illuminators work in. The thermal sights, on the other hand, perceive a wide range of infrared waves. They don't need any additional illumination. They don't amplify the reflected light. They just let you see the thermal emissions that come from heated objects themselves. This technology is more complicated, demanding and expensive because a high-sensitivity thermal sight needs optics that is transparent to infrared rays. You can't use simple glass here. You have to use rarer materials like germanium that dramatically increases the cost of the whole thing. But the advantage that you get in battle, if you have a thermal sight, is colossal. With it, you can see heated objects in pitch black darkness without revealing your position. And these objects might be, say, tank weapons that were recently used to fire a round, or the red-hot engine exhaust, or even tank caterpillars and rollers that heat up because of the constant friction. All these systems are now fully realized within War Thunder, according to historically accurate models and on machines that did have them in reality. Share your impressions in the comments if you already have participated in a couple of night battles. This time, we're looking at one of the new maps called Cargo Port that comes into the game with Update 1.91. The name sounds kinda naval, but this map is for mixed battles. There are lots of port buildings, cargo cranes, and a labyrinth of containers, and there are three main directions to play. The first one, the highway and the landing strip at the west of the map. The highway is ideal for long-range firefights, as it goes through the whole Line 3 of the minimap. Tanks with good armor and powerful long-range weapons will feel at home here. This place is for those who like slow-paced sniper duels with designated reloading timeouts for admiring the view through the scope. It won't be easy to flank you here, but it is still possible. An enemy that manages to sneak through the airport zone can surprise you and your whole team, and you won't like that surprise at all. The capture point here is near the airport as well. The second direction is at the center of this map. Here we've got a lot of buildings, including office blocks, huge fuel storages, and of course, lots of containers. After all, this is a port. Sometimes they form something of a labyrinth that you can easily get lost in, at least for the first couple of battles. There are numerous passages and bypasses, so this part of the map is for more maneuverable machines. The situation constantly changes, and you always need to respond immediately at a pace with which a heavy tank won't be able to catch up with you. The capture point here isn't easy to defend, as you need to control many directions from which the enemy might appear. There are also scores of fences that complicate the use of explosive and highly explosive rounds with their sensitive fuses. The hottest battles will happen in sectors E5 and D6. Here, you always need to be vigilant, as you can unexpectedly meet the enemy nose to nose at any second. Finally, the third direction is the eastern part of the map. The capture circle is wider than the others, so don't expect earning easy points here. The territory itself resembles a mix of the previous two. There's a long shoreline that will attract the adepts of long-range combat, and there will be plenty of sniper duels here, even though the distance between F9 and B9 is less than 1 kilometer. But it's not only the pier in the east of this map. There's a huge area taken by the container yard with passages that will feel great for those riding on medium and light tanks. The smallest ones will even be able to hide behind individual containers. And if you manage to break enemy defenses here, you can even say hi to those who fight for the Bravo point. But if you drive a heavy tank, there's nothing interesting for you in this mashup of cargo cranes and containers. You'll just lack the agility to make any difference. On the other hand, there are fewer fences here, so you're free to use any rounds you like. Overall, the Cargo Port map is quite a big location with a wide range of tactical opportunities for any player, any tech, and any playstyle. If you've already visited it, do share your impressions in the comments below while we're moving on to Hotmail. The first question was sent by a player called Wang Chun. Can you make a metal beasts about the T-114? Hi there, yes we can. And not just can, we already did. Look up the Shooting Range episode 64 on this channel. A user called Taboo asks, when does a hit count as a critical hit? All damage that you inflict on enemy aircraft can be classified as more or less dangerous for its further survival. The ones that seriously worsen the plane's performance are exactly the ones we're calling critical. Also, there's such a thing as a delayed critical damage. For example, you've damaged your enemy's radiator. In itself, this isn't very troubling, but the following overheat might lead to engine seizure, and that damage will also become critical. With ground tech, the logic is similar. The damage is considered critical if the target loses a crew member, or if you break its breech, engine, or transmission. Then there's a question sent by Cece Krom. What plane can carry the most bombs? One of the first that comes to mind is the Soviet P-8, strategic bomber, with its famous Fab 5000 bomb that weighs more than 5 tons. But the record is even higher. Still in the Soviet tech tree, though. It's a Tu-4 bomber. It can carry 4 Fab 3000 bombs that weigh 2,983 kilograms each, which when combined results into almost 12 tons of bomb-carrying capacity. Buellstorm PL has another question. Why are planes' max speed told on some height and not on the sea level? Because planes don't tend to fly at sea level. At sea level there is often, the sea, or land, or something else not quite suitable for flying. Maximum speed of the plane is usually given for the altitude where this aircraft is mostly used. There's also this question from Bens Mezaros. Can you somehow turn off the option to zoom with the middle mouse button in tank battles? Because this would be very useful for the rangefinder. If you want, you can just reset it all on your own. Go to Controls, then Tank, Miscellaneous, and finally Rangefinder. Bind it to the middle mouse button, then click Replace, and voila! And the last message for today was written by Eddie Roylo. Can we use War Thunder as a drifting simulator? Well, for sure. You can use War Thunder as a drifting simulator until you meet someone using War Thunder as a first-person shooter. Well, that's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment. So, come on, people. Subscribe to the channel, put on those night vision goggles and press that bell button. And now you gotta leave a like. And tell us what you think in the comments below. We'll see you in a week.